Hey, it's Plumber Tom. Don't forget to check in the comments below for a link where you can find additional resources like practice tests and courses that you can take. Your support helps me to be able to create more great content. Thanks for watching. Welcome back to this presentation of the International Mechanical Code. My name is Thomas, and we're going to pick it up in Chapter 3. We're going to go to Section 304, and we're going to talk about the installation of mechanical systems and see what code requirements apply. Let's check it out. .304 installation. 304.1 in general says some things about installation according to the manufacturer's installation instructions. Or in other words, as I read it, they're saying, do what the manufacturer says. We're going to write this into the code exactly how you should install every type of appliance because the manufacturers already did that. So what we're going to say is, if you're going to install it, you had better know what you're doing. And you don't have to guess. All you have to do is pull out the installation manual. Now, let's just be honest. Sometimes we neglect, right? We're in a hurry. We're the hands-on type of guy. I'm just going to get this in and put this here and get it built. But the thing is, sometimes we neglect the details that the manufacturer says, you do this, this, and this, because if you don't, we know problems will happen. And that's why we gave you the instructions. So that's my little plug for you anytime you're installing an appliance. If you've done it 20 times and you already know what it's all about, and you know the process and you know the manufacturer's instructions, sure, you don't have to look at the instructions every time. But if it's new and you've never installed this before, yeah, you should know what's going on. And I'm talking even a tank water heater. If you've never in your life looked up, pulled out the manual for a tank type water heater that you install, do it. The next time you install one, do it. Open it up, read through that. It's not going to take long. Just see what's there and install according to their instructions. All right, 304.2, conflicts. Anytime that there's a conflict between what the code says and some other provision, for example, a listing of the manufacturer's installation instructions, they're saying the code is going to have the authority. The manufacturers can't unwrite the code or say, well, you don't have to do that because we're the manufacturer. No. Code is what it is. We meet code, and then we also meet manufacturer's requirements. Now, here's one of the most applicable of all sections for plumbers in the International Mechanical Code, and that is appliances in a garage. 304.3, elevation of ignition source. Okay, what's ignition? That's the little spark or whatever starts the burner, that starts heating. Be that a water heater, a furnace, or whatever. It's going to light a fire. And if that is in a place like a garage where it is possible for gasoline fumes to settle into the floor. Gasoline fumes are heavier than air, so they're going to settle in at the floor. If there's a vapor leak, that can actually come over to the appliance if it's just sitting there in the garage, and the appliance can ignite all of those fumes. Hey, look, this is in here because it's happened before, right? And because we've had problems with houses burning down or blowing up, that's why we have provisions like this. So we do this, right? We see this. You'll install a water heater. Here's an example. This is in a garage. The ignition source for that water heater is up above the bottom, the floor of the garage by at least 18 inches. And then we can put it in the garage, no problem. But keep that in mind. Now, if there's not a place for that, you can buy a stand, a water heater stand. They're rated for the weight of the water heater. It's going to hold it up 18 inches, get you up where you need to be. But you have to do that, right? So check out 304.3.1, referring to parking garages. And in this image, you can see the garage is on the right side. It's a private garage. There's a door into the furnace. Even though that furnace is not directly in the garage, it's associated with it through the door So it has to have that ignition source elevated. Now, what if we had it the other way around? What if the wall for the garage was a complete wall and the door was on the other side and you could access the furnace from the outside, but there was no direct, what they call communication with the other space, with the garage space? In that situation, it would not need to be elevated because it's not connected to the garage where there are those flammable gasoline vapors. So hopefully that makes sense. If it's connected to the garage through a door, we still need to elevate. If it's outside but next to the garage, no connection to the garage, no need to elevate. 304.5 talks about hydrogen generating or refueling operations. Toyota makes a vehicle that runs off of hydrogen. And I think it's cool. It's a great idea. But in order to have that fuel, we have to generate hydrogen, separate those atoms from water as a source, right? But that whole process and the creation of hydrogen gas would have to be done at a facility. And hydrogen, you must know, is a very lightweight gas, similar to helium, only it's far less stable.
The ill-fated Hindenburg on her last flight sails over New York. These pictures, made from a Pathé News plane less than 4 hours before the tragedy, show the world's largest airship heading for Lakehurst, New Jersey. Inside the silver envelope are 16 separate gas bags, each filled with hydrogen, a highly inflammable gas.
Yes, hydrogen does float. So one of the requirements is if you have a facility that's generating hydrogen, you don't want any ignition sources near the ceiling because, well, that's an explosive area. We talked about the garage. It's down low we have to worry about. Now we're talking about up high. Things could get explosive toward the ceiling. And you also have to have openings in that space so that if there's a hydrogen leak, that gas can get out. Once again, sad fact that a majority of the rules and regulations that exist in our world are because, well, we've had accidents. So, as we're talking about garages, 304.6 talks about public garages. Anywhere you're going to pull a vehicle inside of a building, you may still want some heat in there, but if you're going to put a heater, a unit heater, or some other types of heaters in there, they have to be at least 8 feet above the floor and at least 1 foot above the tallest vehicle. So I don't know, maybe if I've got a truck and I know it's going to be so high, I got to make sure that I'm a foot above that because, yeah, we really don't want vehicles, tearing out, ripping down, slamming into appliances connected to combustibles and electricity and all of that. What about in a private garage? Let's say at home, I'm going to do some work in my garage and I'd like to do it in the winter and I like to keep warm. Hey, why not just throw in a unit heater? You can, but it has to be 6 feet above the floor. Now, they do give one exception for that. Again, if I have an appliance in the garage, they have a furnace here, and there's a stopper, something that's going to keep the vehicle from running into that, well, then I don't have to be 6 feet off the floor, but I do have to be protected. 304.8 talks about construction and protection. And that refers us over to the building code for more specifics on how to protect. But for our purposes, just know that we may need to provide some protections for appliances depending on where they are installed. 304.9, clearances to combustible construction. Now, we talked about this in our definitions chapter when we looked at the difference between combustible and non-combustible materials. So if you weren't clear on this, head back there, have a look at that again. But basically, we have to have certain clearances around our appliances so that we're not going to be catching things on fire around them. Now, how do you know how far away you need to be? Well, it's the manufacturer that dictates that. They know what parts of the appliance are going to be at a higher risk. Now, here's an example, tankless water heater. It's going to say it has certain clearances, right? It hangs on the wall, and the clearance is, I think, an inch, a half an inch, but it's created by the space on the brackets behind the water heater. So they maintain their clearance that way. But from the sides, from the front, there's also surfaces that we'd have to keep clearances from the top and bottom. And that way we can maintain a safe installation. 304.10 addresses clearances from grade, or if we're going to take equipment or an appliance and set it down on the ground or the floor, it actually needs to be raised up by 3 inches is what they give us. It says equipment and appliances installed at grade level shall be supported by a level concrete slab or other approved material extending not less than 3 inches above the adjoining grade, or shall be suspended not less than 6 inches above the adjoining grade. So you can hang it, but it has to be 6 inches up, or you can set it, but it has to be on a pad that's at least 3 inches high. HVAC contractors are going to be dealing with this all the time because they set their condenser units, or there are other approved, like stands, plastic stands they can sit on. There's a variety of opinions on that I'm not going to get into, but they're meeting a requirement, right? Okay, 304.11. We get into appliances or equipment that has to be on a roof. And this adds a whole list of different requirements to create the amount of protection we need, right? If you're going to be on the roof, you don't want to be like working up there and get blown off or fall off or something like that. So it talks about guardrails. Guards shall be provided where various components that require service and roof hatch openings are located within 10 feet of the roof edge. So, if we're getting too close to the edge, then we start getting into these guards, right? So over here you can see if it's greater than 30 inches above something else, then we have to start getting into guardrails. 30 inches, you'll notice here, is kind of a key number. We're keeping 30 inches away from the appliances in most directions. And then the guardrails themselves are going to be meeting OSHA requirements at 42 inches. Those are going to be permanently mounted so that we can get up there, we can work, we can be safe. If the distance is 10 foot or greater from the edge of the roof, then this is not required. But it's for those areas that are closer to the edge and create a higher risk for falling. That's where all these guardrail requirements apply. 304.12, last section in 304, says area served, appliances serving different areas of the building other than where they are installed shall be permanently marked in an approved manner that uniquely identifies the appliance and the area that it serves. So if you have a mechanical room and some of the equipment is serving one side of the building and some is serving the other side of the building, we just want to make sure that's clear on what is doing what. And it has to be permanently marked. Let's move on to 305. It talks about pipe support. Now, throughout this chapter, we've been looking at all kinds of mechanical things. Now we're focusing in on pipes because, we have a lot of pipes that would apply to mechanical. Gas pipes, exhaust and flue pipes, hydronic pipes. Anytime we're installing pipes, then we're going to need to follow here, right? It says we have to install supports according to this section, 305.1. 305.2, the pipe hangers and supports shall have sufficient strength to withstand all anticipated static and specified dynamic loading conditions associated with the intended use. So, we've got the pipe, then we've got whatever's going in the pipe, and whatever vibration or other movement may be caused by the entire system or whatever. Our hangers have to be strong enough to hold it. So yeah, sufficient strength and supports. They have to be approved materials that will not promote galvanic action, or they're not going to corrode away over time. We want good solid hangers. As with any other pipes, these hangers and anchors shall be attached to the building construction in an approved manner. We're going to attach that to something structural. And then we get our interval of support or our piping support spacing. Now, this is very much like what we see in Chapter 3 of the International Plumbing Code, a hanger spacing table, right? It gives us a list of different piping materials that might be used or that are approved for use with mechanical systems. Then we get maximum horizontal spacing listed and maximum vertical spacing listed. And all of these maximum distances between hangers are the same for each of those materials as we see in the International Plumbing Code. So for plumbers, this should be review. Be like, yeah, I've seen this table before. Check, check. I've already memorized these, right? Because that's what we work on. I want to be able to know and have it locked in my mind. If I'm hanging PVC, well, I'm going to go every 4 feet horizontal, right? Likewise, we have protection against physical damage, namely nail plating or, protecting our pipes wherever they're passing through. It says, in concealed locations where piping other than cast iron or steel is installed through holes or notches in studs, joists, rafters, or similar members, those holes, if they're less than 1 1/4 inches from the nearest edge of the member, then they have to be protected with shield plates or nail plates. Protective steel plates shall cover the area of the pipe where the member is notched or bored and shall extend not less than 2 inches above sole plates or below top plates. So that's, again, identical to what we find for the protection against physical damage in the International Plumbing Code. That is as much as we are going to cover in this presentation. There is more of Chapter 3 in the International Mechanical Code, so join me in the next presentation where we will start at 306 and finish off the chapter. I'll see you there.